little closer there.
Here, turn your mic flag a little bit. It's kind of crooked there.
There we go.
There you go.
Everybody looking good.
Yeah. Yizzer. All right.
AM 1380, The Biz, the Wall Street Business Network.
Are you one of the 9 million Floridians living in a community managed by a property manager or HOA? If you've ever wondered what your rights are as a resident or what your role is as a volunteer board member, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Condo Coaches, your resource for when your gated community starts to feel more like you're stuck behind bars, or when that guy next door decides that a hot pink Chevy on cinder blocks really sets the tone for the neighborhood. The Condo Coaches is brought to you by lmfunding.com. Find the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. And now your host, Johnny Torres.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for listening, watching The Condo Coaches live on Facebook at facebook.com/The Condo Coaches. That's facebook.com/The Condo Coaches. If you want to be a part of the show, you can call us at 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415. You can also email us. Our email address, help@thecondocoaches.com. That's help@thecondocoaches.com. And, of course, our website, thecondocoaches.com. Thank you so much for listening. If it is your first time doing so, we are a team of volunteers here getting together every week to share our expertise and our knowledge to help you run your community or homeowners association effectively, efficiently, and on budget. And joining me every week to do so is head coach Dean Akers. How are you, sir?
Johnny, I'm doing great. All ready for Halloween and big time.
So, you had this string of trade shows coming up. Now, is this kind of it for the trade show season? How does that work?
We've got a couple more, and we've got the leadership conference, which will be coming up this Friday for CAI in Orlando, which, as we've mentioned, we had scholarships. We've given several scholarships out for that. By the time the show airs, it'll be over.
Yeah.
But the biggest part of the trade shows are over. We have 2 in December, but just unbelievable turnout to both our booth and then our seminars.
Any kind of questions unexpected? I mean, again, most people underestimate how common their problems are throughout their communities and how consistent it is throughout the state, throughout the country. Any out there kind of out of the ordinary?
I had an out of the ordinary interaction that had 75 people laughing and agreeing and going OMG, so to speak.
Yeah.
I had a lady in one of our seminars. She asked me, she goes, well, we've got people that are violating the rules and we want to know how we can really enforce them strictly.
Sure.
And I said, well, you need to define what the rule is that they're violating and everything else, and you need to enforce them. I said, but then here's the question. And I asked 75 people, how many of you drove here today? And they all raised their hand. I said, how many of you did not go over the posted speed limit? No hands went up. And I said, how many of you went faster than the speed limit? And they go, yeah. All the hands went up. Sure. I said, everybody in this room violated the law.
Right.
Everybody did.
And that's the actual law.
The actual law.
Right.
So the police are tolerant in the fact that when they're not tolerant, and I told them about my ticket going down there 2 weeks earlier where the trooper pulled us over.
That's right.
And had us all along the interstate because of a plane.
Amazingly, had not heard of head coach Dean Akers.
No. And when I told him, he said, well, that's pretty impressive. Here's your $291 ticket. But the point is, Johnny, is when you're in an association, there are rules. But there's rules or battles to fight and battles not to be too overworked up about. And the group there, the entire group got it that day. They said, let's go. Our job is to enforce, but let's kind of be what would be the right word.
Well, like the police, you're not going to catch everybody.
No.
And you can only do so much to enforce. You enforce when you can, and you try to, again, keep everybody in line as much as possible,
right.
But at least adhere to it equally.
Correct.
And be consistent.
Right. So that was the funny takeaway this week for me.
Okay. Well, sitting next to Mr. Dean Akers, I feel very bad for you if you are not watching our live stream today, because we have the beautiful Nicole Baldry joining us today. Did I say your last name right?
You did, Baldry.
All right, perfect. So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be talking today about pools and amenities. You are a certified pool and spa operator, right? Did I get that right?
Well, I am, but I'm a certified licensed pool contractor.
As well, right?
As well. Yes.
Okay. And so that's why, again, you're joining us today as our expert when it comes to pools and amenities. You're also a native Floridian. So, I don't know any Floridian who doesn't love the pools and of course, the Florida weather that we're so fortunate to have year round. I mean, no matter what part of the state you're in this week, it's a little chilly, for us Floridians, but, we'll deal with it, right? We'll survive. And what we like to do is when we open the show is go through some of the emails and messages that we get. Feel free to jump in if you have if you want to contribute. But first, I want to tap on a question that came to us through our Facebook page, and this came from Lisa. Lisa Hart writes us, next door neighbor's trees have rooted up our paver driveway. We've had to replace the driveway, and it's unusable at this point. Who's responsible for the tree removal costs, and how can we force the neighbor to take the trees out?
Well, we visited with her, and the answer is if it's a live tree, a neighbor is not responsible for any of the damages from roots coming through. That being said, when you see encroachment of roots and or branches, you do have the right to remove them or cut them off. That means you need to get an arborist, and we had a nice visit. You need an arborist that'll come in and root prune it correctly, and then it's good to go. She bought it as a flip house, so she knew in advance that it was bad. Okay. And at the end of the day, I think there's a good takeaway here in the fact that if it's a live tree, you can modify it, but use an arborist, on your property.
So do damage to the tree.
Yeah. The other side of it is you better make sure what kind of tree it is. Because if it's a grand oak and you just do it by yourself and you kill a grand oak, sometimes the repercussions of killing a grand oak are almost, I jokingly say, and I mean this tongue in cheek, it's probably easier to get off robbing a 7-Eleven.
Well, there are communities throughout Florida. I know Coral Gables down in Miami being one of them. I would say probably the South Tampa, the kind of Hyde Park area probably being another, that if you do damage to any of the trees, you're going to be in serious trouble.
Serious trouble.
I mean, they're militant about their trees.
Yeah, so we had a great visit with her. She understood, and she now is going to reach out to an arborist, get it corrected, and then put her pavers back.
Okay, cool. Well, see, I mean, that's Condo Coaches in action right there.
Yep.
We've got another messages coming from the West Palm Beach area from Amelia. Amelia writes to us, says their condo went into arbitration on September 5th. They still have not received a decision, although they were told that they must have been given a decision within 30 days. It's been past 30 days. Why have they not complied with the law? I mean, we need more context there. But
well, I called her, and so the arbitration, it has to do with a board's decisions and stuff. That it turns out that it's not really an arbitration issue, and their attorneys are involved and stuff. Okay. I think she'll be good to go. What it brought to light again, the number one issue on this show and when we travel around the state of Florida for boards, associations, and property management groups, the three is trust, and transparency.
That's right.
So everywhere we see the challenges, it always comes down to trust and transparency.
Yeah.
And communication, obviously.
Well, we also got an email here from Jim Cook. We're flying through these, man. We're doing really good. So Jim writes to us. He goes, new insurance rules. And he's wondering if the following things are true. If you're an individual owner and leave your condo, you have to have someone come back and check it every 14 days to document any damage, or it will not be covered by your insurance. In addition, the no-fault rule doesn't apply anymore. If someone showers you with water and does damage, they're responsible for paying for your loss, even if it wasn't negligence. He was shocked, I guess, by the new law this year. Another good reason for carrying liability and casualty insurance.
Well, we're reaching out to our insurance guys, but the preliminary on that is that first off, if you're a condominium owner, you are responsible for everything inside your four walls from the paint in.
Right.
So you do need to have insurance. It's called HO6. And so you need to have HO6. And conversely, if somebody else's unit creates damage, like a water, big one's water heater leaks,
Right.
then they're responsible and their homeowners should kick in to take care of you.
Okay. But is there a requirement where somebody has to be checking on the place every couple of weeks?
I've called our insurance guys. I get back. My understanding is nobody seems to know this now.
Okay.
Know this law. So I don't know the law. If we
Still
find
new.
something out,
Right.
I don't think. I mean, we'll know for sure.
Okay,
when
we'll
they
get back to that
But
one.
I have not heard of that. And usually being the condo coach, I hear of most legislation. Period.
Sure. All right. Well, that's a good one. We'll continue to dive into that one. So thank you to Jim for that email, and that'll be an ongoing process there. Kathy writes to us from Pinellas County. She is wondering if the board can decide to withdraw money out of the operating account and deposit it into a 3-year CD. Does the community get to have a vote on something like that?
No, that the board has the rights to do those kinds of things.
Yep.
You don't usually see that unless there's a lot of liquidity in the reserves and stuff.
Okay.
It's always reserves. You don't see CDs for operating accounts.
And I mean, how do you feel about that? What do you, in terms of, taking some of that money and putting it into a CD?
Well, I see a lot of people that get angst over the interest rates, and
Yeah.
and nowadays the interest rate of a 3-year CD and it may be 1%. So on $300,000, it's $3,000 over a year versus $1,500. Is it material? There could be people argue, but people that are absolutely yield driven, it can make sense. The difference is you tie it up for 3 years. So if you had some kind of catastrophic need,
Yeah.
the penalties outweigh that small delta in interest because rates are so low today. So personally, I wouldn't do it.
Okay. All right. Well, excellent. We've got about 30 seconds left, so I'm going to kind of preview this question, and we'll open the second segment with it and then jump right into talking about pools and amenities with Nicole joining us today. She says her HOA has a board election coming up November 7th, less than 2 weeks away. Apparently, the property manager and the board is asking who's going to be running. They are non-responsive. So there's a lot of issues here, and how the Condo Coaches playbooks can help you. Well, we'll answer all that in the next segment. It's the Condo Coaches radio show, coming right back at you after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
It only takes a minute to find out if you may have prediabetes, and you can do it at doihaveprediabetes.org. But you're probably not going to. Nope. I'm sure you've got a perfectly good excuse. Kids, work. I get it. You're busy. So what better time than now? Let's begin. Raise one finger if you're a man. Ladies, none yet. Oh, count in your head if you're driving. Now, 3 more fingers for everyone over 60, 2 over 50, 1 over 40, 1 more if you're not physically active, another finger if anyone in your family has type 2 diabetes, another if you've got high blood pressure. If you're overweight, raise another finger, 2 if you're very overweight, and 3 if you're really overweight. You've just taken the world's first audio prediabetes test. And if you're holding up 5 or more fingers, visit doihaveprediabetes.org or talk to your doctor. There's no excuse because prediabetes can be reversed.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its pre-diabetes awareness partners.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thank you again. Don't forget, you can listen or watch every single episode of the Condo Coaches out there on the great interwebs. YouTube.com or Facebook.com. Both of them have every single episode. If you go to our Facebook page or our YouTube account, search the Condo Coaches, and you'll find every episode. I believe this is number 50. So we're 2 weeks away from hitting our 1-year mark here on the Condo Coaches. Very excited about that. 50 shows already in the bag. That's pretty amazing stuff. And you can watch every single one of them on YouTube, on Facebook. And if you're more of an audio person or you got quite of a long commute, feel free to subscribe to our podcast. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher. So make sure you subscribe and download all the episodes or maybe just the latest episode, but certainly a great way to also keep up with the show is, again, just through subscribing through our social media platforms. So as we were talking about in the last segment, Sheila writes to us saying that there is, as you were just talking about in the previous question, a lack of communication and transparency. They have elections coming up in 2 weeks. They've emailed the property manager and the board asking who is the secretary for the elections and if any of the current board members are going to run again. Several residents and candidates have also been emailing asking these questions, and they've gotten no response from either the property manager or the board. And then a second part to this whole issue is that they also requested that they implement electronic voting, which we've talked about. If you're interested in electronic voting, look through our previous episodes. We did a whole episode on just that. And she recommended even some great companies that provide the service, and they turned it down and said that the HOA attorney advised against it. So first part of that is the refusal to answer any questions regarding the elections. They seem to be pretty quiet on this whole election process. What are the legal requirements here? Because I know there's some regarding notifications for elections.
Well, as a condo coach, first off, if there's nobody running, the current board just stays.
Right.
If there's less than the amount of running from a condo coach perspective, then the board can appoint people. So if there was a 7-member board and 2 stepped down and nobody ran,
yep,
the board can literally appoint 2. I don't know why there would be any reason for them not to tell who's running, but I mean.
But don't they have to give, what is it, 10 days notice or some form of notice as to when elections are going to happen?
Well, yeah, but that's all part of the annual meeting notice, and it's not like a specific election notice. So they have an annual meeting coming up.
Right.
They've obviously noticed it. In order to have an election, they have to have a quorum.
Right.
And
but there's no obligation for them to say, "Oh, this is who's running."
No,
and that sort of thing.
yeah, no. I mean, again, back to the transparency and trust. There's also no reason not to share that data.
So that's bad management.
It's
really.
it's just poor communication.
Sure.
And I don't understand why it continues to be such a big deal for these boards across the state of Florida.
What's interesting is the property manager isn't answering either, which is odd. Because you would figure at least they would say, "Hey, I don't know anything about it. We're not involved in the process," or something to that effect.
Yeah, the property managers are, the property manager reports to the CEO or the board president, so they really don't have an obligation to.
Yeah.
The leadership should be transparent and they should be forthcoming on that stuff. It's just, there's no downside to it.
Right. And then in regards to the electronic voting, really if they turned it down, they turned it down. And you got to get board members that are approving of the electronic voting on the board so that can be implemented.
Yeah, there's no question that electronic voting is here to stay. It's going to grow. The biggest value in electronic voting is voting participation because people really can. And, of course, it eliminates some of the issues that we've seen in some of the other areas of Florida where they've had voter fraud. This really isolates that. So I would say for most associations, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when, and it'll get adopted.
All right, excellent. Well, we didn't get to all the questions because, again, we've been getting a flood of questions over the past 2-3 weeks, but we'll certainly continue to get them in on every single show. We're going to turn right now to our topic of the day. Joining us next to head coach Dean Akers is Nicole Baldry. And so, again, you have, being a lifelong Floridian, have a life's worth of expertise when it comes to pools. And so we're going to talk about pools and amenities, really whether it's residential or whether it's a large condominium community. Are there a lot of differences there in terms of the process to get a new amenity or a pool installed?
No, I mean, whether it's residential or commercial, all pools act the same. It's just commercial's typically a lot larger. So, you're putting the water into a pool and it's getting filtered, it's getting treated, and then you're putting the water right back in. So they all have the same functionality, the same process. They're just, on a much bigger scale when it comes to commercial.
Now, because there's more people involved in the decision process for a community pool, Tell us a little bit about how that process ideally would begin, and basically go through that whole selection process and then the installation process for a community out there that may be considering getting a community pool.
Well, if they're thinking about getting a pool, they want to, they need to have a survey done of the property where the pool's going to be going.
Yeah. And
also think about the population that they're serving. If this is in a 55 plus community, or got an area with a bunch of kids. So, an older adult community may not want a bunch of water slides.
Sure.
So thinking about the design, and then when it comes to hiring a licensed contractor, they would want to make sure that they're hiring someone that is licensed and insured for the property. So, and they can check all that out at dbpr.com or myfloridalicense.com.
And one of the things that you do is you also certify pool and spa installers. Is that right?
Well, I teach a course, the Certified Pool and Spa Operators course, through the National Swimming Pool Foundation, which certifies individuals to clean pools. So it's not a contractor.
Got it. Okay.
So there's a big difference there.
So it's not for installation, but it's for maintenance.
It's for maintenance. That's correct.
Okay.
And Johnny, we were talking about it at lunch because I asked a similar question and she brought up a good point. Most condominium associations already have a pool.
Right.
In other words, the amenity was part of the developer's package.
Sure.
So her big thing that we were talking about is all this to make sure people are certified to maintain it. And then she brought a great point she'll share with you about when there's a repair on the pool, like pipes and stuff, you need to have a contractor again, right?
Yeah, that needs to be a licensed contractor, not an operator, or for, layman's terms, a pool cleaner, a pool technician.
Or just a maintenance person.
Yeah, a maintenance person is not a contractor. Yeah. So they should, an easy way to think about it is when you're cutting PVC or touching wiring, that's a contractor.
Okay. That's interesting. And is it because of the long-term effects that could have on the pool, or why the need to make sure that, obviously aside from the legal need to have a licensed contractor, but why, again, if it seems like something that may be more basic in terms of plumbing, what's really the need for making sure that it's a contractor and not, again, maybe just a plumbing guy or maintenance guy?
Well, so the legality is huge, but, doing things the wrong way, you could change the flow patterns of the pool not get filtered properly. Okay. And then now you've got bacteria growing in the pool, algae blooms. You could have an entrapment hazard down with the main drain, and someone gets stuck to the bottom of the pool and drown down there or die. And also electrocution. If something's not wired up properly or grounded or bonded correctly, then, people have been electrocuted or shocked when grabbing the handrails or the ladders when getting in and out of the pool.
And so just to back up just a little bit, when a community is looking at getting a pool installed, what are some of the factors that you ask that they look into, that they consider when picking out a pool? Is there a certain percentage that you factor in terms of the number of people that live there, to determine how big the pool should be? Like, what are some of the deciding factors? Because obviously you can build them as large as you want. We got the largest swimming pool in the world or something being built up in Pasco County. But again, if someone is kind of looking at what would be the right fit for them, what are some of those parameters that you have them look at?
Honestly, the first thing's budget. It really is, because you can build an ordinary pool or you can be as crazy as you wanted to be.
Sure.
You could have tiles that, let's just say $5 a square foot, and then they've got tiles that are $20 a square foot, so how nice do you want it to look? And do you want it to look just like the pool next door? Do you want it to be a little bit different? So how much do you want to spend on, I guess, each of your features as well? Do we want to go with just concrete pavers? Do we want to go with travertine? So each and every little feature that a lot of people may not pay attention to around a pool, but they're priced very, very differently.
But if you are living in a community, is there a certain percentage of that population that you want to make sure is able to take advantage of the pool? Does that factor in at all, or no? Or is it mostly budget? I
would take that into consideration, especially since you've got the Americans with Disabilities Act. So you want to make sure that you're accommodating all people, whether it's children, someone in a walker, a wheelchair, the elderly. You want to think about everybody. So you kind of want to get the most use out of your pool for everyone that's in that community.
All right, awesome. Well, Nicole Baldry is joining us as she is our pool and amenities expert for today's show. Again, head coach Dean Akers. It's the Condo Coaches radio show. Again, every single episode on our website at thecondocoaches.com. YouTube or Facebook, just search the Condo Coaches. We'll be right back with segment 3. Stick around.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzzed driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You could kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says, "I'm a catch," more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thank you so much for listening, watching the Condo Coaches radio show. If you do want to watch the show live, we broadcast it on our Facebook page, facebook.com/thecondocoaches. Make sure you sign up for the notifications, and we typically do it on Mondays around 1 o'clock, so make sure you sign up for not only our page, but for the notifications on when we go live. And we're reading the comments, and we'll, of course, check our mailbox throughout the show, so make sure that you also keep us up to speed on what you think of the show and maybe what topics you'd like to see. That helps drive the show as well. Head coach Dean Akers joining me as always, and our guest today, Nicole Baldry. We're talking pools and amenities, of course, an essential part of Florida living. We, of course, talk a little bit in between segments here off the air, and we were just talking about just kind of laying the groundwork on how a community goes about picking a pool, right? And you mentioned budget being a big determining factor and making sure you can service all of the residents. And this is always, especially in single-family home communities, it's a point of contention between residents, because especially if the community doesn't have one, like where I just moved from, the community did not have a pool, but they had sufficient space. They had a large park, and they had, so there was plenty of room for a pool. And so it was those who were in favor of one versus those who were not in favor of one, especially when in single family homes, you can easily just add one onto the back of your house. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, well, if you want a pool, just get your own pool, and not pass that cost on to the rest of the community. But again, it's, there's a lot of pros and cons in the issue there. But with any pool, right, and in any amenity in a community, the biggest expense really long-term is maintenance. And that's a big part of what you do. And so what are some of the misunderstood elements of pool maintenance?
One of the, I guess, most common things that I see is people not taking the time to maintain a pool. They think that they can go in there and in 5 minutes, you've got the pool guy or gal that she shows up and they're gone in a couple of minutes. You're thinking, well, what did they do? You know? And any size pool, whether it's, the pool behind your house or 100,000 gallon pool at the HOA,
mm-hmm.
You can't sufficiently clean a pool, test the water chemicals, check your pH, add any of the necessary chemicals you need to, brush it, vacuum it. You can't do that in 5 minutes.
Sure. So you need to be aware that when your pool maintenance person does come, that they're going through all those steps.
That they're doing all the things that you've contracted them to do.
And how often should they be going through all that? Is that in every time they visit? How often should they be visiting?
Well, that's going to depend on your contract with them. Obviously, people don't just show up to work for free. So,
sure.
If you're paying someone to show up 7 days a week or if it's just once a week. But by Florida law, and this is actually in the Florida Administrative Code 6049, a public pool. And so HOAs, condominiums, timeshares, those are all considered public pools. They have to have their water chemistry checked for at least their free chlorine and pH once every 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
So someone at that community has to be checking the chlorine and the pH every day.
And just for background.
Whoa. What are the chances that's happening?
Hopefully it is. Because, I mean, they
But
do
would you
get
say
inspected.
most likely it's not? I mean, you're saying every day somebody needs to go out there and check it.
And yeah, it's supposed to be in some kind of a logbook. So
it is a manual check. There's not like some magic device that exists that will do it for you, right?
No, because the law even states that too. Like, even if you had a computer on your pool, you're not supposed to just go to the computer and say, oh, the computer said my pH is 7.4. Let me just write that down. You're supposed to actually get a test kit, go take a sample of water from the body of water where people are swimming and test it with a test kit.
Every 24 hours.
Once every 24 hours
Wow.
for pH and chlorine, and then once a week for alkalinity and calcium hardness and stabilizer if that's used.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Man, that's eye-opening.
Yeah.
See, I've never owned a pool. I've enjoyed many a pools in my lifetime, but I've never owned a pool, so that's news to me. And so that's a daily check, right? But that's something a homeowner could do, right? Or that's something a resident.
So anybody can test the water. So here's
Right.
here's the issue. So let's say homeowner A goes out there and they test it on Tuesday because the pool cleaner doesn't go out there on Tuesday, but by law it has to be checked. So they check it and the pH is 8.0. So it's illegal, it's too high. Well, that homeowner then can't add acid.
Right.
That has to be a certified individual. We don't want just anybody dumping muriatic acid into,
Certified and licensed.
Well, it's not a licensure. So
Oh, okay.
a license is a contractor and a certification is the operator. So
Okay.
it's good for 5 years. So it's different than a licensed contractor.
Got it.
But yeah, so if something was wrong, or if it was like a code brown,
Yeah.
a homeowner can't take care of that. So they would have to call the pool cleaning crew, the certified pool operator, to
Right.
come out and then add the chemicals.
Are there any other kind of timely elements like that residents need to be aware of, that that there's a schedule that they need to abide by, or is that pretty much the main one?
Well, they have a annual operating permit through the Department of Health every
Okay.
year.
Well, and for background, you used to work at the Department of Health.
I did for 6.5 years.
Yeah.
So I went and inspected, public swimming pools and septic tanks and drinking water and everything else. But yeah, so I did public swimming pools.
Okay.
But they get inspected twice a year through DOH. So you can, your communities can expect some sort of inspection between January and June,
Yep.
and then another one sometime between July and December.
That's excellent. And so, like right now, right, we're kind of going through our season change here. We typically get a very late winter here in Tampa Bay, but it's end of October, got a bit of a cold front coming through. What changes should you be aware of? I mean, is there anything there that someone with a pool or a community with a pool needs to be aware of when the temperature changes?
Well, right now would maybe be a good time to look at your heaters, because there are a lot of communities that I deal with, or resorts in the Orlando, Tampa area, that, people are still swimming on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
We heat up a lot of our pools. So maybe now take a look at everything to see if it's working correctly before it does get freezing cold. And then that's when, oh my God, I wanted to use the heater, but it's not working today. So
Sure.
Taking a look at that. And then maybe not so much right now, but in the next couple of months, we will start to see all these leaves falling into the pool. And you'll be skimming out the leaves and the acorns.
Right.
Maybe, depending on some of these communities, how many oak trees they have, you may be doing that 2 or 3 times a day.
Sure.
Because your skimmer baskets and everything else are going to fill up.
Well, and so some communities like to have now where, they'll have a day where you can bring your dog and the dog can get in the pool and that sort of thing. Tell me kind of for anyone that might be considering that sort of thing, what are some of the technical logistics that need to go into that for somebody to do an event like that in their community?
Oh, okay. This is kind of touchy. So they probably want to notify their local health department if they're doing that. my understanding is that if they wanted to do that, the dogs could be in the pool, but not at the same time as humans.
Interesting.
And then afterwards, they would probably want to, like super chlorinate or shock the pool and maybe do a thorough cleaning and backwash before they reopened it up for personal use.
Just to make sure that it's all flushed out.
Yeah, you would be shocked at the amount of bacteria on the dog's fur. It will eat up the chlorine out of a pool in a heartbeat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure even if ideally, which I'm sure most people don't, but even if ideally your dog's getting a bath every week.
Oh, yeah, but you think of the surface area alone,
right?
Of how much bacteria could be held on the
all the
fur
hair and everything. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so
you're like cringing over there.
Yeah,
She's
so you wouldn't advise pet day in the pool.
Well, no, there's communities that do it, that they can do it, but
there's a lot that
but
goes
they do
into
not. I think and I'm not going to like drop names here, but I think that there's a big park that has a pool just for animals.
Okay.
But yeah, we should never mix the animals with the people at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great advice. Because I see this and I'm like, how does that, it always kind of scratched my head a little bit. So it's even worse than I thought. But
yeah, because I had a city over closer towards Orlando call me and ask me the same question, I think 2 years ago, and I had to call the health department and see what their take was on it. So it's always good to let them know, especially if, you just don't want anyone getting sick.
Sure, of course.
So, and all the kids, they get in there and you see the big brother spitting water on his little sister. They put the water in their mouth, and then that's how you could just easily, get what we call a recreational water illness, getting sick from a swimming pool.
So one of the trends that I'm sure I don't need to tell you about, but certainly one of the trends that we're seeing now are saltwater pools. Am I right?
So with a saltwater pool, there's a big misconception with that because people think that with salt, I don't have chlorine. And you do have chlorine in a saltwater pool. What you're doing is you're adding table salt, sodium chloride. And when you put that into the pool, that salt water then goes through a cell, and through the process of electrolysis, we kind of separate the atoms and we mix them all back up. Yeah. And so we don't have sodium chloride and H2O, but we have hypochlorous acid. And that's chlorine. That's what's killing the germs. So
you're
when
just
people
making
say
it a different way.
You're just making it by using electricity.
Sure.
So when people say, I don't have chlorine in my pool, I got salt. Well, I hate to tell you. Yeah, you do. You're just making it.
Well, the big thing is I hear people go, wow, you have a saltwater pool. And all they can picture is swimming in the Gulf of Mexico. They don't realize that a saltwater pool is the same as a water softener.
It should not be that salty. The ocean is 43,000 parts per million of salt, I believe.
Wow.
And your pool should be like 3,000 to 3,500.
Yeah, you don't even notice.
Now,
it should not be like the ocean.
To my knowledge, I've not been in a saltwater pool, but is it in terms of the experience and like the with your eyes and the taste and all that stuff, is it very similar to just being in a chlorinated pool, or is it
in my opinion,
neutral,
if you were in one, you wouldn't know it.
I can speak up as a condo coach. I had a saltwater pool, and I've had chlorine pools. I can tell you a salt pool is like taking a bath in soft water. It doesn't screw your hair up as much. I mean, I'm just telling you what I've seen as a fact.
All right. Well, that's what I was getting at, was the overall experience.
Oh, it's nice. I love it.
All right. Nicole Baldry joining us, our pool and amenities expert for today's Condo Coaches show. Head coach Dean Akers. Johnny Torres, your final segment coming up right after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
Thanks, Julie. And coming up next, is there rain in your weekend forecast? We'll find...
Hey.
Hi.
It's been a while. Great place and nice neighborhood. You must have a strong community association board.
Thanks. I guess so, but I don't pay any attention to that stuff.
Seriously? How do you know for sure the board and community manager are making the right decisions to protect your investment?
I don't, but what am I supposed to do?
You can get involved and connect with CAI.
CA what?
CAI, Community Associations Institute, they're a nonprofit group that has helped us build a great community. They have free resources for your association board, professional training for community managers, and helpful information for homeowners.
Thanks. I'll definitely do that.
Is the time and investment you have made in your home and community protected? Be a smart homeowner and visit CAI at responsiblecommunities.com.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thank you again for listening, watching the Condo Coaches. Don't forget, we've got a set of booklets that are absolutely amazing that you need to download right now at thecondocoaches.com/playbook, thecondocoaches.com/playbook. Now, this is a book, it's 8 books.
7 books are published.
7 books are published, right.
And
I lost track.
And the number 7 book is, I think, the coolest one that we gave away at the trade shows like crazy.
Yeah.
Which is a book for property owners. So it tells
For
them,
the residents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It's our first resident focus book, and it's already a big hit. All you've got to do is go to thecondocoaches.com to download it. You're not only going to get that book, but you're going to get all the others along with it. It's 7 booklets, and they're absolutely free. All you got to do is fill out a form, let us know you're a living, breathing human being, and they will not only come to you in an email for you to download at your choosing, but once you fill out the form, they should also populate right there on the website for you to pick which ones you want to download. So head over to thecondocoaches.com/playbook, thecondocoaches.com/playbook to download our booklets today. Yep. Joining us, Nicole Baldry. We're having a lot of fun talking pools and amenities. I don't understand this project that's happening up in Pasco County with this massive lagoon thing that they're building. It's a great gimmick. It's a great marketing gimmick, you know, if you're trying to sell homes and that sort of thing. But I can only imagine we're talking maintenance, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that thing is massive.
Isn't this, I don't live over there. Isn't this like over 1 million gallons or something? It's pretty big, right?
Yeah. Like, it's bigger than some lakes. I mean, it's just insane. So, so getting into maintenance, what are some of the other things that people often overlook, you know, when you're talking about maintaining a pool, again, be it a lagoon of that size or even your community pool, or even if you own your own pool in your backyard?
Water chemistry is important.
Okay.
And a lot of people, I see they neglect to check for alkalinity. Alkalinity is going to be your pH's buffer, kind of holding everything in place where it needs to. You don't want to have to keep going out in your pool, checking everything every single day because it's just up and down, like a roller coaster ride, bouncing all over the place. You kind of want to keep things in, you know, where it needs to be, and you don't want to be out there. I want to enjoy my pool. I don't want to have to always work at it. So, checking the alkalinity and keeping it between 80 and 120 parts per million. So, because I talked to so many people, and I just dealt with a client, and they said, "Oh, but I'm checking my chlorine, I'm checking my pH," and I'm like, "Okay, what about alkalinity? What about calcium? What about total dissolved solids? What about phosphates?" I mean, like,
wow,
yeah, and this was kind of and I'm like, you should be checking all of this stuff on a regular basis.
And that's why you need an expert to come and do it.
Well, or at least go through a course, you know, and get certified, you know. Anybody can, you know, take there's online courses and the courses that I teach in person. So, cool. But that would probably be one of the main things that I see.
Yeah.
And then another one would be brushing. A lot of these places, I'll go somewhere and you can see their tile.
Yeah.
And I call it the bathtub ring. You know, that scum layer that forms on the tile.
It's a white.
You know, you can write your initials, Nicole.
No, it's like scum.
You know? And I'm like,
okay. Like mold. I mean,
well, from all the suntan lotions and the oils and stuff, it just floats at the water surface. And if they're not scrubbing those tiles every day, and I'm not talking about you like spray on a little bit of cleaner, walk away. You have to get out a brush and move your elbows. You got to scrub it. And so many people are lazy.
Sure.
You know, and they're like, oh, okay.
Let's work.
Yeah.
That's why you got to hire somebody to do it.
Go around the corner and they take a cigarette break, text on their phone. They don't do their work.
So what about the little robots, right? The little, the little self vacuums that you see often that people run in their, in their pools and stuff. I mean, are those any good? What does that really do for you, other than just kind of the obvious of just sucking out any kind of debris that gets into the pool?
Yeah. So it's it's a vacuum. It's doing my job for me. Primarily, I kind of want it in the pool when people aren't using the pool, especially for a public pool, because you don't want that hose in the pool with the little robotic vacuum scooting along and then someone get tangled up in that vacuum hose. So It is okay for a condominium to use one of those, but when they open that pool up for the day, take that thing out.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's going around and they've got all kinds of them that, not only they just suck up the leaves, but they also have kind of like little scrubbing pads on it.
Yeah.
So it also kind of brush the pool walls as well.
And how are those? Are those any good? I mean, I'm sure it varies, right? Depending on what you get, but I mean...
Right, yeah, you get what you pay for,
okay.
like with anything, but I think that they're great.
Okay, good.
My mom, hers can suck up pecans, so that's...
Nice.
Pretty substantial size, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and is there anything else out there, like any kind of new technology, any kind of new things that people need to be aware of that maybe something they might want to look into for either their personal pool or their community pool?
Well, there is automation, of course, and we're seeing more and more of that now. That is going to be a little bit more on the pricier side. These computers, I could, from my iPhone, I can, program it. So my pool, when I come home, has got nice, smooth jazz music playing in the outdoor stereo speakers. Nice. And, the waterfall's nice and smooth. And I've got blue and purple lights on. And then my husband, he could push his setting, and then it goes to red lights and rock music and, the fountains going. So you've got all kinds of automation.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years ago, something that came out is they've got like these little bracelets or headbands that kids wear. So if they fall into the pool, which is the whole nother pet peeve of mine, but it can send a signal to like your smartphone to let you know your kid's
falling in the pool.
Exactly. Which,
wow.
I mean, you should be watching your kid.
Sure.
We shouldn't have
that shouldn't be
our iPhones being babysitters. So that's the big pet peeve with me is parents should be watching their kids.
Not only that, by the time you get there, it could be too late.
Well, and the sad thing is drowning is the number one cause of death in kids 1 to 4. Wow. The leading cause of death.
Yeah. I got a 2-year-old. We're definitely not getting a pool anytime soon.
Or teach her how to swim.
No, absolutely, yeah, and we're definitely doing that. I mean, I learned at a pretty early age as well, and it's been incredibly valuable. And I still get shocked that there are people that don't know how to swim,
right?
But
especially here in Florida with a retention pond on every corner and the ocean on every side and pools at every community.
And so, Florida being what it is, we get relatives that come and visit all the time. And of course, we have cookouts and we have all kinds of holidays and stuff coming up. And so, first of all, when you do have, let's say, an increased number of people that are going to come over, enjoy your pool, what should you do before and what should you do after in that situation?
First thing, check for safety. So our public pools, I don't want to see lights hanging out of the wall.
Yeah.
Make sure my handrails, my ladders are nice and secure. Checking for my water chemistry, chlorine, pH. If you know you're going to have a bunch of people in there, go ahead and get that chlorine on the high side of the legal. So for our commercial pools here in Florida, we can run them for outdoor. It's up to 10 parts per million of free chlorine. Indoor pools, if anyone has an indoor pool, it's 5 parts per million.
Yeah.
And other safety equipment, life rings and shepherd's hooks. You have to have those at public pools. So
that's required. Yeah,
that is required by law. So I mean, safety, because you can't. I mean, that's a terrible vacation. That's a terrible get together if someone dies or ends up in the emergency room. So I say safety is first and foremost.
No, look, I mean, years ago, I jumped off a high diving platform with a cousin of mine. I was a great swimmer. I've been, again, I learned very early on how to swim well. He was not a great swimmer, and we jumped off together. Well, he panicked, and he was pushing me under the water because he panicked, when we hit the water. And so again, even someone like myself who was a great swimmer and it would have been fine completely on my own, I was here and nearly drowned at the hands of my cousin who was panicking from the jump off the high diving platform. So it goes to show you just being a good swimmer sometimes often isn't enough, and how much vigilance really comes into play, because my dad did have to jump in the pool and pull us out because he saw what was happening.
Yeah, and another good thing is, we've got designated drivers have a designated watcher. So if you know you're going to have a bunch of kids, because and rotate it, because no one wants to spend their entire get together, for the 2 hours watching kids. Take turns. Every 20 minutes we rotate adults or whatever, but make sure that person is watching the kids, because drowning is not like what we see on TV, where people are got their arms up and they're splashing and yelling. Drowning is the silent killer. You go underwater, and it's seconds.
Sure.
And you don't hear someone.
And the busier the pool is, the harder it is to detect whether someone is in danger or not.
And you can see the YouTube videos with that. I mean, people that are in the gymnasium full of, the pool's full of students and water polo, and someone goes under, and the parent's sitting right there in the bleachers, and they don't even see the kid that goes under because there's just so much activity.
Now, with the cold season arriving, people are going to be using their hot tubs and the spas a lot more. A lot of the rules still apply, same rules as...
No, so there's totally different rules when it comes to our spas.
All right, we're going to have to bring you back for that one. All right, I should have asked that question early on. That's the end of our show. Thank you so much for listening to the Condo Coaches. Say goodbye, Dean.
Goodbye.
You've been listening to the Condo Coaches, brought to you by lmfunding.com. Find us online at thecondocoaches.com and join us this same time next week as we help you navigate life in your managed community.